Let's talk Tanya for the 28th of Sivan of a leap year. In yesterday's Tanya, we spoke about Memalik Halalman, the light of God, the energy of God, the creative energy of God, which is a contracted energy and enters the world on its terms in order to create finite, limited creations. What is the process of the contraction that leads us to Memalik Halalman? So the Alter Rebbe explains that the source of everything that exists is Ruach Piv, is God's breath. Earlier on in Shariach V'Munah, we spoke about how everything comes from the Asara Mamaris, the 10 utterances. Yes, but when we speak, what is the source of the speech? It is the breath that we exhale as we are speaking. So there is God's breath before it actually takes on the form of words. God's breath contains within it all of his attributes, his wisdom, his understanding, his knowledge, his kindness, his severity, etc. And because God's attributes are infinite, God's breath, by definition, is also infinite. And therefore, if creation were to be a product simply of God's breath, then number one, there would be an infinite amount of worlds. And number two, every one of those worlds would also be qualitatively infinite. We wouldn't have our world, a world which is filled with finite creations. So this energy, the energy which is present in God's breath, had to be contracted. What is the way in which God contracted it? Is through the 10 utterances. Suddenly we have 10 very specific utterances. The breath has been limited and contracted, and now it's Yehi Rakia, let there be heavens, Yehi Or, let there be light. So we've taken an infinite energy and we've further contracted it. Now that works for the grander elements of creation, the heavens, the seas, the different species that are out there. But for the average run-of-the-mill simple creation, the light which is within the 10 utterances, the energy which is within them, is still way too intense for the average creation. So the light has to further be contracted. And that is by way of a process that we spoke about, we touched upon in the first chapter of Shariach V'Munah, which is, we have what's called tzirufim, which means that we have words which are taken from other words. So let's say you take one letter from one word in the 10 utterances, another letter from another word, a third letter from a third word, a fourth letter from a fourth word. You bring them together and you create a new word. Now it's obvious that the energy in this new word which is created is not going to be as potent as the energy in the original word. Then there is tmurais. Tmurais means that sometimes we switch letters. There are different groupings of letters, and within those groupings, letters can be switched around. Then there is gematria, numerical value. You can have one word which is the numerical value of another word. And then sometimes you have all of these together. You have a word which is taken from various letters from various words, and then you go and you switch around some of the letters for others, and then you take that word, the numerical value of that word, and you create another word, and you have another word altogether to create something else. And all of these are part of the process of diluting and contracting the original energy and light to the point that ultimately, what do we get? We get an object like a stone, which is inanimate. From infinite light, we get something which is inanimate. In tomorrow's Tanya, we're going to continue this conversation. We're going to talk a little more about the nature of gematria, of numerical value, and then also we will conclude this entire discussion.